Hello, I'm moderator joined by one of my fellow Alliance Tournament commentators, Black Bart Pirate, and we're going to talk about some bracketology predictions and who of the 32 teams in the Alliance Tournament we think might win it all. So, I've been a player for the last around 10 years, and later on I became a tournament team captain, and then since Alliance Tournament 14 to now AT20, I've been commentating with CCP, and one of the people I've been fortunate to work with is, again, BBP. So, BBP, how'd you get into EVE quickly? How'd you get into tournaments? Why should people listen to you?
Okay, I'm gonna skip the how I got into Eve quickly because it's a tale that involves things that are not safe for the modern Eve Online community. But alcohol was involved, and I know we all love that. As for how I got into tournaments, so I started off Eve Online with Brave Newbies a long time ago, back when they were actually Brave Newbies, because it's been like 11 years at this point, and so can they really be called that? Absolutely yes. Love Brave. I was in an alliance that I think doesn't exist anymore called Northern Coalition, and they basically started creating a tournament team. It was the first time I believe that they'd done a tournament team in like recent history. Now, when I say recent history, this is like 2014, so just going back a little bit of time. And I hopped on. We sucked really badly, and we didn't do great. Okay, it was one of those, the classic. Okay, it's our first tournament team. We went in. We went like 0-2. That was it. The second iteration of our tournament team, we actually had a bunch of dudes that were from Nulli Secundus, which was Ajax 33, also known as Nidaspar, as the team captain. And we actually did really well. So we got fourth place on that. The next year we got fourth place again. The next year we got fourth place again. And at that point, I was kind of like, okay, fourth place the first year, that felt super cool. It's like basically, okay, baby's first tournament run, we get top four. Second time, okay, that felt good. The third time didn't feel that great. Turns out if you get the same place every single time, even if it's, better than the vast majority of players, you feel kind of sucky about it. So, funnily enough, there was this guy named Moderator who I was talking to, and he was like, at the time, he was a commentator, and I had said, hey, how did you become a commentator? And you basically said, well, you just apply. And I was like, oh, why would they want to take me? And you're like, hey, look, dude, like, what's the worst case that happens? Like, you apply, they say no, you're in the same boat. I applied, they said yes. I went to Nottingham, and the rest is history. And I believe that was like 2017 or 2018. So now I've been a staple of the Alliance tournament for, gosh, a while. I think this is my fifth or sixth AT that I'll be commentating and doing analyst on. Yeah, so why should you listen to me? I have no idea. CCP says you should listen to me. You should probably cut that part out. But why you should listen to me
I
is,
won't.
I mean, I've been doing it for a while, right? Like, I've been part of the tournament scene since 2014. I've done a lot of top four finishes. I've arguably done a first place finish, but I wouldn't really say that I contributed much besides being a practice partner with that team. And yeah, I don't know. I've just been paying attention to it. Done a lot of analysts. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of more about myself and why you should listen to me. But hey, like, at least I've been watching it for a while. I'll give you that.
So basically, we're a bunch of Eve boomers, and CCP has decided that we are going to be two of the people that are going to be on the broadcast team that get to break down all of the events and spaceship explosions this year for the 20th iteration of the Alliance tournament. So, getting right into this year's tournament, looking at the bracket predictions, just talking about who we think might win the whole thing. The very first match we've got is Fraternity versus Till Doomsday. I think this one's pretty straightforward. Fraternity won Alliance Tournament 19. I think they'll probably win the first matchup here. And then right after that, we've got Templus Calcif versus Exodus. One of, I think, what will be a pretty solid match. Templus Calcif and Exodus, I would say, roughly kind of on the same scaling. Templus Calcif, though, as of late, has been a little bit more consistent. What do you think, BBP?
So this is kind of where we get into the weird thing. Having been doing this for about 10 years in the tournament scene, maybe a little bit longer, it's always something that we do, or we assume that just because the first place team was first place last year means they're going to do really good this year. Now, internal information that I know, Fraternity seems to be the same team, so I would expect them to beat Till Doomsday. Unfortunately, Till Doomsday has never really shown particularly well in the tournament. I do always hope that these kind of up and coming teams will this will be their time where they pop out, be the dark horse, and win. But yeah, I agree with you on the first one. On the second one, Tempest Calcife versus Exodus. So it's kind of interesting. Tempest Calcife and Exodus used to be like tight as heck practice partners. You see, I just censored myself there because I knew that you're going to post this somewhere. Gotta get that in for get that practice going for the next couple days. Tempest Calcife and Exodus used to be really tight practice partners, right? Like you would see them bring out almost the same comps all the time, and then one of those teams kind of broke away from the other one and became a practice partner with another team, which we'll talk about at some point, and hopefully I'll remember to bring it up, known as the Tuskers. So back in the day, these two were the same people. Now they've split off a lot. Exodus has kind of continued to be about the same level where I would say they're like a top 12, top 8. Tempest Calcife generally seems to not be that good anymore. So I'm going to disagree with you here. I actually think Exodus beats Tempest Calcife just because I haven't seen Tempest Calcife do particularly well. They've seemed to be kind of flying the same thing every single tournament. And at some point, somebody will look at the last 6 years of history and be like, hey, Tempest Calcife, you guys just like to fly heavy missile kite or rapid light spam. What if we just counter that?
Yeah, I look at kind of Tempest Calcife as having done kind of pretty well. They even were competitive against Truth Honor Light last year deep in the losers round. But just kind of for time's sake, I see this as kind of going either way this year with best of ones. We're going to run into that a lot where I think there's some matches that could go either way. Might be weighted one side or another, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at least on the first two. And I'm not going to leak this, but Bart and I do have access to all of the team rosters and mercenaries. We are not, however, going to be leakers. As of late, Alcoholic Satan unfortunately getting removed from the CSM, so we're not going to do that. Going to the next match, we've got Platinum Sensitivity and Hole Control, and I think this one is pretty solidly favored in Platinum Sensitivity side. We've got the Japanese Dream Team of Kent Larkus and Mark Bridges, and they've been consistently pretty much a top 6-8 team over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, Platinum Sensitivity's done really good every single year that they've done. They've flown. They you can tell that it's literally you watch the feeders and it's the same people as last year who did great, and the same people as the year before who did great. Whole Control, they've been hit or miss, but they've never hit as hard as Platinum Sensitivity would.
Yeah, I think that's one where we can kind of move on to the next match and look at Volta and Brave Collective. I'm just looking at this one in Volta. Even though they've been weakened in the last couple of years, they were a perennial kind of top 2, top 3 finisher. You'd see them in best out of threes, losing to Truth Honor Light or Warlords of the Deep, as they used to be called, Hydra Reloaded, all the same team. And, they'd be losing in best of 5s, best of 3s to them in grand finals, in, winners final. They're still a good team. And I think they'll take this pretty handily against Brave Collective.
Well, and I think in addition to that, because there's been some talk in sort of the tournament circles that Volta's sort of washed up now that Starfleet Commander is not part of their team and part of their planning process, because if you didn't know, Starfleet Commander is in fact part of the Alliance Tournament broadcast team now. And as per this being a 100% CCP done production, we can't be part of teams and be part of the broadcast team. In previous years, there was kind of a little bit of wiggle room, so some of us got away with doing a little bit of shenanigans and doing some practicing, but sort of a digress there. However, the Volta team, with the exception of Starfleet Commander, is pretty much intact, and according to him, he had basically stepped back last year as well. So this Volta team is the same Volta team as last year, which is basically the same as the year before. So I don't think Brave has a chance. It'd be really cool to see them pull something out, because again, I've been a huge fan of the newer teams kind of popping up and punching down some big idiot boomers. But there we are, right?
Yeah, I mean, I look at any Volta team that has any Gardet on it, has Rylode on it, has Theron, has TikTok on it, and I'm like, okay, you've got the core, a captain, co-captain, and then your Logi players, and then sort of your core skill role players. You're gonna make it pretty deep in any tournament. Going on next to THL and BSOD. I mean, BSOD's a decent team, but THL, as we were just discussing, They're they've been favored to win the Alliance tournament. I feel like every year for the past 5, 6 iterations of the event. Um, just unlucky draw here for BSOD.
Yeah, I think, and I hate to say this because this is one of those things that like you say it now and then you just, you're gonna be like, well, I look dumb, but um, I think that Truth Honor Light's placing last year was actually a fluke. Because they won 2 years in a row, like easily won 2 years in a row, and then they kind of sputtered out last year, and I think they might have metagamed themselves too hard. But if they take the lessons of last year, like they should have won last year, like legit. I'm gonna straight up say it, or they should have pulled second. I don't think B-Sod can beat them. That being said, for those who don't know, the B-Sod team is also like there's been some shenanigans going on. They seem pretty strong from the feeders, but I don't think they seem Truth Honor Light strong. Granted, we also haven't seen Truth Honor Light in a year, so maybe they've lost some key players as well. That's information that we would have to know about ahead of time, which we can't divulge one way or another as per the NDA.
Sure. So I would say that BSOD is basically the second best Russian team. We'll get to the best one later, but they're the second best Russian speaking team. They did okay, not amazing, in the feeder bracket. Again, this has got to be pretty solidly THL. Moving on to White Squall versus Genshin Impact Alliance. This is going to be a matchup where no matter who wins, the winner is going to get kind of smacked against THL in the next round. Genshin Impact Alliance, I felt, did reasonably well in the feeders, and White Squall didn't really do anything that impressed me, frankly. Like, yeah, you made it into the tournament. Good job, but I'm giving this to Genshin
Yeah,
Impact.
I think this one's legitimately a toss-up. White Skull was not as impressive as they were last year, and Genshin Impact was significantly more impressive as they were last year. So, things change every year. It is what it is. I will agree with you on this one, mostly because I don't think it matters too much about who they go up against. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and Genshin Impact, for reference here, is the Chinese version or Chinese members of Snuffed Out. So Snuffed Out has an English-speaking team, and then the Chinese-speaking members that are in Infinity Avenger, the Corp and Snuff, have split out from Snuff for this tournament, and they're in their own team. So you've got Sailor and Rusin Saw and some of those other members that are really kind of making up that core there. Going on to the next match, we've got Paper Numbers and No Need Loose Face. This has got to be Paper Numbers. I don't want to hype up um, their team too much. There's enough glazing that goes on there, but I think this one's pretty solidly in favor of Paper Numbers.
Yep, I agree.
And that's probably all we need to really say about that one here for now. Scrolling down just a little bit, the next match we've got is Of Essence versus Rote. I could see this one going either way, but I do feel like it is somewhat Rook favored, given what we saw out of both teams in the prelims this year in the feeders.
Yeah, Rote actually looked good. I think they looked better than they have in a few years. They've had a lot of like downs, I would say. Like there's not really been ups and downs. They've been slowly kind of getting just rough years over and over and over, but they looked pretty damn good this year. So I would say, yeah, Of Essence, well, they made it, but I think Rote has it unless they do something weird. Which, speaking of doing something weird,
Sure. In the next match, we've got Tuskers and Unspoken. You were talking a little bit earlier about Templess splitting up and talking about Tuskers. Is that related to that?
yeah. So Tuskers has been basically they've been playing their own tournament for years now, and I mean like actually years. And at worst, they seem to get fourth place playing their own tournament. At best, I believe they got second last year versus Fraternity, which you're nodding, so I'm assuming that's right, but it could be totally wrong, and that's okay. But they've done very, very good. I don't think a team like Unspoken Alliance, who this is, if this isn't their first time making it past the feeders, this is like their second time in several years making it past the feeders, has what it takes to beat the Tuskers. That being said, this is a best of one, and Tuskers is famous for their, I believe it was a double Hugin comp that had like 800 DPS total. So like, there's a possibility that Tuskers like giga metagames themselves into just not bringing enough DPS to break like a single ship in the entire game. I don't think that happens in the first match, but like I would say like 9 out of 10 times, or maybe even like 95 out of 100 times this goes to Tuskers. So you're good there.
Yeah, I think this is a match where Tuskers can bring the most generic of setups and pretty handily walk away with it and just win on pilot skill alone. Going on to the next matchup, we've got Plug and Play, Team Radicos, and Rage Quit Cancel Sub. And just to meme on Radicos a little bit, I chose Rage Quit Cancel Sub, but I really feel like this is a matchup that could solidly go either way. And unfortunately, you play Tuskers next round, so you're going to get sent to the losers bracket immediately after, in all likelihood.
Yeah, I mean, in all likelihood, but I will say Plug and Play actually played really good in the feeders. Like, I think that Plug and Play takes this match. Um, Straight up, like they are better than Rage Quit Cancel Sub. They played better than Rage Quit Cancel Sub. They have more depth in them than Rage Quit Cancel Sub. Do they beat the Tuskers? Maybe. I mean, Tuskers is weird. They're the worst. Yeah, you say no. Yeah, I know. But like, you know what I'm saying, right? Like, things that beat Tuskers is people playing good anti-kiting comps really well. And I'm not saying because Tuskers doesn't really kite anymore, but the things that beat them are things that beat kite setups because Tuskers loves these like weird E-War control setups nowadays. I think that of the two, Plug and Play could win, and I think Plug and Play definitely beats Rage Quit Cancel sub. So you should swap those. I'm gonna just say in this specific case because I know that it'll mess up the bracket down low unless we don't care about that.
Yeah, I care a little bit about that. In all seriousness, I think this can go either way solidly. I didn't think about this one too much, but I question who do you like more? Do you like Radicos or do you like Debug? I think that in all seriousness, Plug and Play did play pretty well in the prelims, and I can see this going either way. But for our next match, we've got Deteriorated and Slow Children at play, and I kind of hate to say this, but we'll break this down into kind of matches 11 and 12. Some of these initial matches are not the same caliber as some of the ones we were just talking about above. And I think this is going to be the first one where I'm really talking about these two being some of the weaker teams that did qualify.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to say it because it sucks, especially if they come and watch this. But like, I think that especially match 11 is kind of two people that, like, of the two, Slow Children at Play have done a lot of AT matches, but at the same time, when you have these like very sort of teams that have lost a lot, I guess will be a good way to put it, which is still a shitty. Like, there's no nice way to put it, right? I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to use my broadcast thing where you're not trying to just like shit down on people. But like having a lot of matches played when you lose every single one of them doesn't really mean that much. So like I don't know what 11 is. 11's a toss up. I think you knew 11 was a toss up because you put the team that literally has never played a match before. And then 12, same sort of thing. Like Only Fleets actually played pretty decently, so I think they win that one over Post Product Clarity. But then like it goes in the next one and it's like who is Deteriorated, right? Like I think you predicted this perfectly, where it's going to be, you know, I don't know who wins 11. I don't think it really matters. I think Only Fleets beats them. I think Only Fleets moves on. It just is what it is.
Yeah. And then this is kind of where I didn't want to punch down on people, but when you have 32 teams in the tournament, someone's got to be first, someone's got to be 32nd. And
Yep.
That's kind of what that is. Moving on a little bit, we've got Barcode and Goon Swarm Federation. I'm going to, stand my team a little bit. I am kind of was on the practice squad, I guess, essentially for Barcode, and have kind of been helping them out a little bit here and there, not too much, just because there are some rules, as you were alluding to, and there's some restrictions there. But Barcode got third place last year, and I think they're primed to do much better even this year than they were last. Just an unfortunate draw for Goonswarm. I think Barcode win this one, bringing any generic setup against Goon.
Yeah, I don't know. I know there's a couple of people that are like, well, okay, there's like a couple 10,000 people that are just huge like Goonswarm fans here. The day Goonswarm can win 2 matches in the tournament, the actual tournament, not the feeders, not their own tournament, like the AT, is the day that I will not say that Goonswarm loses. And until that happens, I am going to assume that Goons are going to 0-2 out because they've done that in every single year. And there's been one year that they won 2'd out, and it was because they kind of did some cheeky stuff, and then they went into against a good team. The good team just stomped them, right? So Barcode played really well last year. Goons did not. Barcode wins this one. Same thing when you go into the next one. It's like evasive maneuvering actually played pretty damn well last year. Pandemic Horde, which we thought was going to be a Cinderella year, did not. That being said, I don't know if you saw the feeders, but Pandemic Horde was like hot shit good in the feeders.
Yeah, so Pandemic Horde, the way they were playing, it felt really good to me. I was a fan. I was genuinely kind of impressed with what I saw out of them. Unfortunately, they're playing evasive maneuvering, which is basically the reimagined version of Darkside. And Darkside is one of THL's practice partners, and Darkside has been one of those teams where they have some of the members formerly of Vidra Reloaded combined with, the old Darkside core, like, Faffy Waffy and such, where I was talking about how the number two, Russian team was Isad. Well, this is the best Russian team. And unfortunately, this is just an unlucky draw for P.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I also I don't know. It's one of those things where like, yeah, theoretically evasive maneuvering is like I'm agreeing with you. Like I agree with you that evasive beats Pandemic Horde, right? But um we shouldn't discount Pandemic Horde when we get to the lower bracket, right? So like I agree with
No,
everything that's said, but
we're not
definitely
going
should
to
not.
we're not going to discount Pandemic Horde. I think they were good. We can get into this when we get to the lower bracket and to the second round of the winner's side, but Snuffed Out versus Odin's Call. Snuffed Out is one of these teams that has gradually actually been getting better, and they looked pretty solid in the feeders. Actually, like the last couple of years prior to, they'd been one of those teams that had like gotten through on like the second round of the feeders, right? Or they'd gotten through like the last chance, like they barely squeaked in. This time they did very well in their bracket, and they've also picked up some of the members that had been, I want to say, on the Pandemic Legion team. We saw Stoya play with them. So he'd been an old staple of the PL team back when they were even good still. So they've improved, but they're going up against Odin's Call round one. And I think you, of all people, would be best equipped to talk about Odin's Call and who they are and why they're good.
Well, okay, so here's my thing about it. Like, I am pretty good to talk about it. So if you didn't know, Odin's Call is more or less about as close as you can get to the sort of the good run of the NC dot team, like the back to back to back fourth place team. Most of the people on it are from that original run. You have the same team captains, you have all that stuff. So like it's a pretty good team. Most of the same team captains, because some of them are now in Truth Hunter Light, because that's just how the AT goes. Is people move up to try and get higher places. That being said, I feel that again, like I'm going to agree with you here, but I'm doing these like little like theological Switzerland things where I'm like, but I could see Snuffed winning because honestly, Odin's Call wasn't that impressive in the feeders. Like, yeah, they made it through, but they made it into the redemption round and had to go up against teams like Till Doomsday, which is, ooh, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, oh, they made it into the like once again they made it into the final round, like the no shit you're about to get kicked out round, and they barely squeaked through. Granted, the time that they did a really good job, they did that, but like they didn't feel as powerful this time. Like Snuffed felt very strong. Odin's Call barely made it in. So I think this is going to be one of those matches that's going to be like going to be one of the ones where like at the end of the day we're going to be like, oh, what matches do you think we should watch again? Snuffed Out versus Odin's Call, because it's going to be damn close no matter what happens.
I'll say, for what it's worth, Odin's Call had an absolute hell bracket where they, in their pool for the feeders to get here, it was them, evasive maneuvering, and boundary experts. In any one of those teams, I would expect to place top 12 in any given year.
I would disagree because boundary experts were dog this year. Like actually, they were terrible, which is what happens because a lot of the team members from them went and moved off to like what was it, plug and play, or they just stopped playing the game. So it's one of those things where it's like just because of the way the feeders were set up, One team was going to make it through, which was evasive maneuvering, because they're really dang good. One team was going to make it to the redemption, which was Odin's Call, and one team had no shot no matter what. So yeah, yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And then we've got the final match of the um, the day. We would have Arrival and Ronin Reloaded. So
Yeah, Arrival, easy, like done.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I think Arrival's a team that when we were talking about teams that we expect to make top 8 to top 16, like they're not going to knock off any of the major teams that we expect to kind of win, unless there's kind of a very weird best of one or someone does something very silly in draft. But they consistently will make it, 1 or 2 wins in the winners bracket. They'll get knocked off by like a champion, caliber team, and then they'll do okay in the lower bracket and they'll walk away with some prize ships and, be pretty happy with themselves. That's basically where I've got a rival.
yeah, I agree. I don't know about Running Reloaded. I feel like that's a new team. Like they made it through the feeders, so good for them. But there's a couple teams that made it through the feeders that basically got free passes. I'd have to go back and look at the bracket, which I'm not going to do right now because that gets rid of the point of meme Reddit post streams, right?
Yeah, so I mean, Ronin Reloaded. I want to say their captain is Bed Boss. They've got a lot of mercs on their team. Um, but for now, let's scroll down to the losers side of things. Unfortunately, someone has to lose their first matchup, and then we get to Till Doomsday against Exodus. I think this is solidly an Exodus win.
Yeah,
Really,
I don't
it's gonna be whoever wins between Exodus and Templus is gonna take that match, and they're gonna take it handily.
Yep.
And then I've got Whole Control and Brave Collective. Um, this is one of those where I could flip a coin, really. And then the winner of this matchup gets to play the loser of either Evasive Maneuvering or Barcode. And for context, Evasive Maneuvering, they won Anger Games, and they got top 6 last year, or top 8 even, I believe. So sucks to be Whole Controller Brave Collective. That's where your run-ins this year.
So here's the question, okay? Normally I'd agree with you, like it's a big ol' who cares, right? But remember, we have people from both Brave and people from Whole Control that may or may not be making an appearance on the stream. So which one will make them sadder? That's the one we hope loses. I think Brave. I think we want Brave to lose, right? Because that'll make Fear mad, and that'll make who's the other person?
True. It would make Fear mad, so I should choose Whole Control to win.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Got it.
Because like if Whole Control wins, it doesn't make anybody mad besides some former EVE player who's now a CCP member, and whatever. He's really tall, and we don't want to make him mad. He could probably kill us.
That's true. We also have another
Yeah.
member of what was formerly the community team.
Yep.
And,
Yeah. So yeah, we want Whole Control to win this one, not Brave. Yeah. Good job, Whole Control.
Good job.
They'll still probably lose to evasive maneuvering, though. You're not wrong.
True. And then B-Sod versus White Squall.
B-Sod.
B-Sod kind of all day, and then
White Squall got cannibalized. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Like their team, they did a pretty good job last year, and then the good players left to go join a better team, and the bad players stuck around, and that's just the way the AT works, and it sucks, but it is what it is.
Yep. Of essence and no need to lose face, I flipped a coin on this one, truly.
Yeah. Neither of them played. Like they did that. That thing that I'm tangenting because that's what I do. That's kind of like my whole point. But that thing where like you've watched like several hundred tournaments or several hundred matches. Like I'm on probably like 700 or 800 matches right now, right? And like you get to the point where you can look at a team comp and be like, what the hell are you doing? Like you don't even need to know the rules of the tournament to look at a team comp and be like, yeah, there's something wrong here. Both of them were doing that. Where you look at their setups and you're like, did you guys actually did you not realize some of these ships can be replaced with others? Because that's kind of how I was at. I don't think either of them. That's a match that I hate to say this, and I say this totally disparagingly and with a shitty attitude and things I'm not supposed to say, but I can say it here because I'm not on stream. This is a match where I expect them both to warp in at 0 and shield rush each other, and then whichever team loses is going to be like, well, we would have won if we had da. When the actual is like, you would have won if you had used a real comp, right? I'm expecting a double shield rush, and they'll be like, well, one of us won, one of us lost. It's because we got too many wrecking shots. Oh well, move on.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty spot on. The next one we've got is Unspoken and Plug and Play. I think Plug and Play is actually favored here, pretty
Yeah,
solidly
no,
by a
absolutely.
good margin.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think
The only
there's
reason Plug and Play's in this bracket is because they had a rough starter bracket. That's it. They played very, very well in the feeders, and the whole reason why we do the feeders is because it lets us know, like, it gets a lot of the bad teams out.
Yeah, and again, I was trying to find it. Plug and Play had to go up against, what was it, Rage Quit Cancel Sub. I mean, they have a kind of an unfortunate first round for them. Not
Well,
terrible, but like I really feel like this is one where like the loser, you could take this team or you could take Rage Quit Cancel Sub, and both of them beat them.
yep, I think either of them could end up there, and either of them beat Unspoken, and that is how it is. Like, yeah,
And then,
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yep, and then we've got Slow Children at Play and Post Pod Clarity.
Ooh, I feel like Postpod Clarity wins because that name's way better, and Slow Children at Play has been so consistently bad that I don't think they kill anything.
This was truly another coin flip match.
Yeah,
and I didn't choose a team here because I thought it would be funnier to not give credit to either Pandemic Horde or Goonswarm Federation. I think is actually most unfortunate for the stream because we get a lot of viewers, obviously, from Horde and Goonswarm Federation. Either time either team is on, it's like, oh hey, we just picked up like another 1,000, 1,500, 2,000 viewers, and then when it goes on to like some 100-man alliance versus another 100-man alliance, it's like, oh, we just lost like another 1,000 viewers that were just there to watch like Goons or Horde play, make alliances.
Counterpoint to that, neither of them ever really make it to the top 16, and our viewership numbers still stay above like 10,000. So clearly their influence does not matter that much because I'm pretty sure most of them are too busy ratting or sitting in home defense fleets to actually watch the AT. So, there's that.
If I'm forced to choose someone though,
Pandemic Horde.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah. Then Snuffed Out and Ronin Reloaded. Again, Snuff,
yeah. Now, that being said, one of my dreams, so last AT, I had a couple little dreams, all right? Obviously, I shared Misty's dreams, which was that I wanted to see Fraternity do well, and they did. I have wanted to see Goonswarm do well in an Alliance tournament for like 5 years. Because I know they actually put in a lot of effort, and they organize their own team. I want to see Goons do good. And every single time, like, have you seen the ad that like Azure and Arjun and like Goons made, where it's like, it's a CCP overload. I was trying to remember. I was like, wait, what's the CCP name again? CCP overload being like, surely Goons can find 10 good players out of 40,000 people, and then they're like, meanwhile in 1DQ, that one. I'm in that same boat. Like, I want to see Goons do good. Seeing big alliances win the Alliance tournament. And I know this sounds super counterintuitive, and there's a bunch of small gangers that are going to try and grab pitchforks, but they're not going to be able to find me because I'm too fast. Seeing big alliances win the Alliance tournament is a good thing. Because right now, like last year, having Fraternity win the Alliance tournament was a good thing. Because for the first time, the same 4 teams didn't make the top 4 as they did 3 years in a row. So, like, Goons, come on, Goons. Like, pick it up. Beat P Horde.
It's kind of like one of that meme of like someone who's like poking with like a stick at like a rock saying like, do something. That's us being like,
Goons,
please, Goons, do something. We want you to, but Horde's been looking better so far.
Like, Initiative's not even there. You have 40,000 people in your like giant coalition. 10 of them should be good enough to win a match versus Pandemic Horde, right?
You'd think so, but maybe not. So. I'm going to go back to the winner's side of things to see who gets us our second round of the loser's side. So, Fraternity and Temple's Chaos. I mean, this got to be Fraternity, right? I mean, same roster as last year. Last year they looked good. I agree with you that maybe they kind of won because Truth, Honor, Light threw, but still, Fraternity played very well last year. Like, mechanically, they were solid.
Yeah, I would say, so with last year, just to go back in history a little bit, Truth, Honor, Light would have beaten Fraternity in a best of 5. Like, straight up, no questions asked. Nobody else would have beat Fraternity in a best of 5. Fraternity didn't win because Truth, Honor, Light threw. Fraternity won because Truth, Honor, Light didn't make it to the finals. It's not a throwing or not throwing. I think Truth, Honor, Light would have beat them in a best of 5, but Fraternity has like, they execute their like 2 to 3 comps insanely well, and thing that really sucks for Templus Calcif in this, and this is kind of my opinion specifically, but the rules do not play well to Templus Calcif style of play of this tournament, and the rules play very well to Fraternity style of play. So I think Fraternity wins this not necessarily because they're better or worse than Templus Calcif, but because their specific style of play has they don't really need to iterate on it and learn anything new. Like, they're going to win because the tournament rules basically make the way they play even better.
I would tend to agree with that for the most part, but I would also say that a lot of the comps that were good last year, where we saw them execute supremely well and better than we thought they would, are still for the most part decent this year. And I just saw better play from your average fraternity member than I saw out of Templus last year. And for that, I'm giving it to Fret pretty solidly here. Any thoughts on that one before we move on?
Oh yeah, I already said what I was going to say. Yeah, Platinum Sense and Volta. I mean, how about that one? You gonna make somebody mad? You got an anti-Mark Bridges fan club? I don't know about that one, buddy.
I think one of two things is we're gonna get one of two Voltas this year. We're either gonna get a really solid Volta lineup that looks like they could be a top 8, top 4 team, or I think they're going to be, or they're gonna bomb out. I think this is really on like how much does Annie Gardet and Thorant like care at this point. Are they not as motivated like you were describing when you were with NC Dot? Are they still motivated to play at this point? If they are, they could be top 3 Volta. If not, and they're just kind of going through the motions, I think Platinum Sensitivity wins.
I think Volta wins this because Platinum Sensitivity has never shown a particularly large depth of play. They really, at the end of the day, it kind of boils down to they either fly Shield Rush or they fly back in last AT, they were flying the double battleship setup that everybody was doing, like the 2 battleship and then a couple bit of like a little bit of ECM and control setup. ECM being like any kind of ECM, not jams. Just saying that in case somebody's like, I've never seen Platinum Sensitivity fly anything else, and in the feeders they continue to do that. So I think that Volta is a team with enough experience and people on it that can look at that and be like, okay, we can counter them. And I don't know if Platinum Sensitivity has the ability to beat that because it's a best of 1, and they could get surprised. So yeah, I think Volta wins this.
Yeah, I think Volta's got more depth in their setups. I think that definitely this is a match that either team can lose in draft. And I want to see the good Volta, the one that's been, the solid, team that we keep seeing in the finals weekend. I'll say that was not the Volta we saw last year. I hope they do better. That's why I've got them here. But I could see very much Japan winning and going up against China, which would be hilarious for Twitch chat and for the community.
Yes, for those who don't know, Platinum Sensitivity is actually a pretty much all Japanese-speaking and Japan-based alliance or AT team. So it's not like when people say that Fraternity is a Chinese alliance, but it's actually just a gigantic coalition that has a lot of Chinese speakers in it. Platinum Sensitivity is literally a Japanese alliance playing in Japanese time zone, which means sometimes they have to do matches at like 5 a.m. on a Monday, which is really sucky, but hey, they still do it.
Yeah, and I mean that's what you kind of got to deal with is time zones. We've got players from every corner of the world. That's what makes EVE Online one of the more unique and interesting games, is that we've got everyone from all parts of the world playing on the same server. And Truth Honor Light against Genshin, talking about Asian Chinese teams. I think whoever wins between White Skull and Genshin basically get stomped here by THL. Sucks to be you, but them's the breaks.
Yeah, I mean, if Truth Honor Light doesn't metagame themselves, they should win against almost every team in the entire Alliance tournament. The only time they lost last tournament was because they metagamed themselves, and they flew what they should have known was a bad comp. And they did know it was a bad comp, and I know this from DMs that I got when I asked them, and I was like, what the heck was that? And they were like, yeah, we don't know. So, like, it's the thing. But I mean, that's a conversation for another day. But yeah, I think this is an easy Truth Honor Light victory as long as they just stick to executing something that's like an A tier comp and not trying to do some weird thing that they're like, well, in our private super secret lab is an S tier comp except against getting shield rushed and losing to shield rush.
Yeah,
It's a true story. Happened to them last year.
it it did in fact.
It
Uh,
did. It did in fact. Yep.
paper numbers and rote. Um, rote's been getting better. Paper numbers has been about the same as they've ever been, and I feel like paper numbers best is better than rote's best, and paper numbers worst is generally better than rote's worst.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good way to put it. I think that's kind of a. I think it's an either or. I don't think either of them beats Truth Honor Light. Like period. I don't
No,
think either of them have the because you need some weird depth or some weird execution to beat those guys, and I don't think either of them have that. So
and I hate to say this, we'll get back to this a little bit later on when we get back to round winners. But yeah, paper numbers over rote. Again, this could be a match that either side wins or loses in draft, or does something very silly and throws a match. But it's not something I feel really solidly on. It's like a could be like a 60-40 here, really.
well, that's one of the things about anytime you look at a team versus a team with the Alliance tournament is every single match is one that could be lost on draft. And there's a reason why we've continuously changed the way bans are done and drafting is done is because we're trying to avoid that little bit of a I wouldn't even call it RNG per se because like the lack of having the psychic power to predict what the other team is bringing. And so at the end of the day, like yeah, I mean at any point in time, you could try and do something and then get Shield Rush into oblivion because it turns out you brought a comp that can't beat Shield Rush. Though, as I've been saying since 2018, if your comp can't beat Shield Rush, it's probably not a good comp. But hey, here we are, right? Look at all these teams that made it here just by shield rushing people down.
True. Hey, that's what you got to do in best of ones. You got to shield rush down. And speaking of two teams that I think might have to deal with, shield rush, Huskers and Rage Quit Cancel Sub. This is another thing where I hate to say I think probably the worst player on Tuskers is better than the best player on Rage Quit Cancel Sub.
Yeah, the only time I've ever seen Tuskers actually like shit the bed versus a team that they should beat was the one time where they brought a double Hugin, which me like every single person was looking at it like, yeah, that doesn't make any
What were you
sense.
smoking at the time? Like what's going on in
Yeah.
Mirashiv's brain right now?
Well, I literally remember us seeing it because we were in studio and we were all just like what the fuck is this? Like seriously? And we looked at it and we're like, is no, this makes absolutely no sense. They have no DPS, and then they lost because But if Tuskers doesn't do that, which I have a feeling they're probably not going to ever do that again, I don't think they can lose to Rage Quit Cancel Sub.
Yeah, and that's not really an attack even on Rage Quit Cancel Sub. I mean, even if it's plug and play that wins, I'm sorry, Radicos, like it's Tuskers. Unlucky. And then this is a situation where I have to say that one of these four teams have deteriorated slow play at Children, Only Fleets, and Post-Pod Clarity. One of them is going to make top 16. One of them is
Yep.
going to get prize ships. I think this
Yep.
is by far the weakest for teams that are in kind of a pool. But someone's got to come out on top. And of those teams, it's probably Only Fleets.
You know what's cool about that though is at least that none of these guys are up against one of the big juggernauts. So like, yeah, like one of these teams doesn't like only one of these teams makes it to top 16, but at least one of these teams makes it to top 16. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
maybe we'll get surprised. Like honestly, you make it to top 16. I mean, if there's one team you have a chance of actually just like dice rolling and destroying that's a top tier team, Tuskers is the team that you have a chance of. It's not your dice; it's Tuskers rolling their own dice. But Tuskers could roll their own dice and be like, "Well, shit, I guess we're done." So
Yeah.
we could see a little dark horse action.
Yeah, so we got to hope that Tuskers, they've been playing probably some Baldur's Gate. I've seen them on Steam. They, just don't roll that one in crit fail, against Only Fleets.
Yep.
And then we've got a matchup so Barcode and Evasive Maneuvering was the grand finals for Angry Game 6. And this is happening in round 2 of the Alliance tournament.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think evasive maneuvering wins this one. I mean, come on, like let's be real. I know you're simping for barcode, and that's fine, but like evasive maneuvering is probably one of the best teams of all time, composed of some of the best players of all time, with some of the most experience of all time. Like it's like the old Vidra team with the old like B-Sod team with the old Darkside team. It's like if you pick like the key members of some of these like legendary I don't remember what there's an official term. We don't use the R word right now. Like the cis teams, right? That region. Uh, it's one of the best teams composed of all of the best players who happen to speak a certain language from a certain area of the world that is it's the enemy, right? Like
Yeah.
these are the guys. Every single person on that team are like legendary players that we've seen all over the place that all kind of came together as Vidra and then disappeared and now they're kind of back together. Like Barcode, cool. They're good. I think they top 4 or top 6. I don't think they beat evasive maneuvering.
I think this is a 50-50. I think this match will be won or lost in draft. Whoever wins draft wins this match. I think the player skill on either of these is high enough that whoever chooses a better comp wins the match. Period. I don't think this is going to be won like on the grid. And there's only one player here that is like notably very missing from evasive maneuvering's team. Otherwise, I would agree with you. But there's that one player that they're missing who I can't say because that would be an NDA breach. That's giving me pause. But what do you
Is
think
it
about?
moderator?
Well, I just said I can't say, otherwise it would be an NDA breach. I'm not
Yeah,
about to get my flight canceled here.
fair
Um,
enough.
what do you think about the take though that this will be won or lost in draft?
I mean, every single game is won or lost in draft. Let's be real. Like that's kind of what I was getting at. Is like you can't. It's one of the unfortunate things, and it's why we've changed the rules and the banning process so much for this specific tournament. Is because it's been a perennial complaint for like a decade. But yeah, I mean, in this specific case, it probably is won or lost in draft. I hate to say it. We've done such a good job of like the problem is this game keeps evolving, right? We have like 350 valid AT chips nowadays. It used to be like, okay, well, I banned a Slepner. I have now banned Shield Rush. Well, now it's like, well, I got to ban the Slepner and the Loki and the Nighthawk. And also, technically, we should probably ban the Cyclone. And maybe we should ban the Alligator. And oh crap, there's all my bans, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, it's won or lost in draft. I think evasive maneuvering is better. And the only reason why I'm contesting that at all is because the next match of Odin's Call versus Rival, Odin's Call obviously wins. I think evasive maneuvering beats Odin's Call. I don't know if Barcode beats Odin's Call.
Um, I'll say that I think either team handily beats Odin's Call. I'm simping a bit, but I think the Barcode team, I know they beat Hydra last year, and Hydra threw that match. I'm perfectly aware of that, but this year's Barcode, I think legit is a top 3 team, top 4
Okay,
team.
yeah, that's fair.
I think that their run last year in 18-19 does demonstrate that they are that caliber, and I think they're even better this year. I really think that whoever wins this match has a good shot to go up against Tuskers and beat them and go to winners final. I think that the winners final from this half of the bracket will be one of these two teams. It'll be evasive maneuvering or barcode. I think either of them can beat Tuskers and will go up against THL on winners side. I just think it's
That's fair.
crazy that we're getting it in round 2 of the tournament. That one of them's going to go down into the lower.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I don't think Odin's Call has the depth to beat any of them, which I guess is skipping ahead a little bit, but
yeah, a little
yeah, they
bit,
definitely
but
beat a rival. Though. They easily beat a rival.
yeah,
Like they better beat a rival. Let's
they
put it like
yeah.
that.
I think that Arrival, they did look pretty good this year in feeders, but I mean, Odin's Call's best again is it's better than Arrival's best. It's what it is, and I think they're going to bring their A game for this match. I really hope they don't kind of screw up this one, just for their sake. Any more on that, or good to move on?
Oh, good to move on.
Okay, so going down into the bracket here, I I have a rival losing against Odin's and going against Exodus. I had to kind of coin flip on this one. Exodus has been a little bit streaky, but they
Well, they
looked
haven't
good
been
this year.
streaky.
They've been
Yeah, they've
getting
been bad.
worse. They've been getting worse progressively until this year, where it looked like, oh, you guys decided that you were gonna like not meme with like really dumb like shield kite like fly killer setups, and you're gonna like pick up the meta and not try to force things that aren't good anymore. And you have the player skill to just make top 16 off that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, I think they find it took them a year, right? It took them a year or two to kind of be like, oh, okay, wait. I also think that the rule set of this year play really well into them, their style of play, as opposed to the previous years where it's kind of like, I don't know. I don't necessarily agree that a rival beats them, but like I said, I think you coin flip this one, and we're kind of like, it doesn't really matter because whoever goes up against them loses to evasive maneuvering,
That's where I
which that's
was.
fair. Yeah, because like I agree that it's like it does matter for them in the sense that one of them gets top 16 and one of them doesn't, right?
Yeah.
But in regards to how the actual tournament plays out, no, I don't. I think that whoever goes up against evasive maneuvering loses. I also agree with you. Like evasive maneuvering beats Brave. I don't think Brave can beat them. Brave has really not been that great this year. Like they barely squeaked into the tournament itself.
Yeah. And we
Like
were kind of joking about how we weren't like that serious about Brave against Full Control. It could be either team.
yeah,
This is a matchup where it's like, yeah, okay. It doesn't matter if it's, barcode or if it's full control. It's one of evasive maneuvering or barcode is just going to run through this lower bracket is what that is. Deteriorated versus B-side. That's got to be
yeah.
B-side,
Who
right? Like,
yeah, right.
who are we
Who are
kidding?
deteriorated?
Yeah.
Well, that's the match 11 and 12 groups where we're just like, who does it? Like BSOD should win. BSOD's been kind of mediocre for a couple years, but they're really good at taking something that's like they take a meta comp, make it a little bit weird, and then people are like, how do we beat this? Until they're a good enough team to be like, okay, well, you just chose a worse setup. You know what I mean? Like they kind of surprise people. I think the same thing happens here. So yeah, they beat deteriorated. Is
Yeah.
what it is. Rage Quit Cancel Sub versus of Essence.
I didn't pick something here. I was going to actually have this be a U pick.
I say Rage Quit Cancel Sub here just because I feel like they played a little bit better and I like their name better, and that's kind of really all that there is into it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So we're going with
Um,
the deep cuts here for Rage Quit Cancel Sub.
yeah.
B-side.
Now that being said, like I'm gonna stick with it, but I would love to see Essence win because they've been doing this for several times, and I know that Rage Quit Cancel Sub is a new name for an older team, but I like seeing the same team go over and over again and slowly get better. But I don't think that happens at this specific one.
And so for some of our viewers, listeners, who might not know, Rage Quit Cancel Sub, who are they or who were they in previous?
I have no idea. Sorry, I was distracted right now. I'm I'm looking at my list of stuff because I have to pack and I have to be on a plane in about like 16 hours. So no, Rage Quit Cancel Sub was they've got so it's a lot of mercs, which means we can't really talk too much about them because the merc lists, from as far as I'm aware, have still not been published. Correct?
Yeah, that's still NDA.
So let's just say that they have a couple of people that were part of a team that have changed to make a new team with the same name. And I know that's super vague and infuriating, and it sounds like I'm saying I know something you don't know, but like it's literally because the information is not public. What you can do if you're interested or you care is you can go watch the match and look at the names and then compare them to last year, which I know is a lot more effort than you probably want to do. But let's just say that they have a couple people that played last year. They did pretty decent. They basically changed their name. That's who they are. I think they beat Evessence because Evessence has, I think this is the first year that they've ever been able to make it to the actual tournament itself. They've competed several years in a row, and basically the reason why I say it is I like when I see New Blood come up. I don't think this is the one where Evessence beats Rage Quit Cancel Sub, because Rage Quit Cancel Sub played decently in the feeders. Evessence, I want to say they kind of snuck in a little bit. Does that seem like a...
That's fair.
Okay, yeah,
That's very fair.
Yeah, just the nature of the feeders is there's always a couple teams every year that drop out before the feeders, or they turn out that they can't bring enough people, right? And the reality of the Alliance tournament is there's almost never a chance or a time when bringing less than 10 players is a good idea. just because that's how Eve works, is more shit, more better. Uh, so every once in a while, these teams will get through that maybe shouldn't have, because their opponents either dropped out, which guarantees that you get through, surprise, surprise, or their opponents weren't able to field enough people. And I believe that Of Essence was one of those that they kind of had an easier bracket. I could be totally wrong about that, but hey, you know what? Clip what I said, make an AT ad about it, and prove me wrong.
Yeah, of Essence, they had some teams in their bracket. I'm not going to look at them because it's time to look at the next match, which is Rote and Plug and Play. And I feel like this is favored for Rote. Not a lot, but still favored in their way.
Yeah, that seems fair.
I just look at kind of their pool where they had Accept Your Fate until Doomsday, and I'm like, okay, you didn't have that strong of a pool, but you won your pool. You didn't
Yeah.
kind of have to, qualify, in the back. But then again, Plug and Play, they won outright, and their pool again though was Unspoken and Fancy Pants, where it's like, okay, who did you beat to get in this year?
Yeah, and Fancy Pants was really bad. Like, they're really bad. I'm sorry, guys, but they did worse than I think they've ever done before. So and that's kind of brings to the same point. So I did just to backtrack, Of Essence, they got in for free, basically. They had a person drop out of their bracket, which meant they got in. So it's the same kind of situation here where it's like sometimes you make it in. I think Rote beats them because Rote's, they've always been decent, and I think they'll continue to be decent. But we'll see what happens.
In this next matchup, I had I'm like, okay, well, we're gonna have a new top 16 team because we've got Genshin Impact, which is the again Chinese speaking snuff players. And I think it would be really funny if the Chinese speaking snuff players get in, but the English speaking players who've been trying to for the last 5 years make top 16. But they might because Slow Children at Play, their pool was the Ancients and Snuffed Out, and they came in second through there and did nothing really of note, in my opinion.
Yeah, well,
Genshin,
so Slow Children played went into their redemption match against Intergalactic Space Hobos, who were literally who's. So I think Genshin Impact wins this because they actually kind of. I don't want to say no one earned their spot, right? But there's definitely some people that earned their spots a little less than others, and I think that Genshin earned their spot a little more than Slow Children, and I think Genshin is going to win this one.
Genshin, their pool for our viewers was Minmatar Fleet Alliance and Seriously Suspicious, where we were talking even then where we felt like this was one of the weaker pools in the tournament, and then Genshin Impact won pretty handily.
Yeah, they stomped them. It's not that they won handily. It was like I think it was 200 O's or like they were like 192 total to like 0 or some. Like
it was very one sided in that pool for
yeah,
sure.
it was
So
brutal.
Genshin Impact I think they can make top 16 here, and
Yeah.
I think it would be cool to see another team really break into that. This is another matchup on Platinum Sensitivity versus Pandemic Horde. Platinum Sensitivity, if they get here, it would be essentially them or Volta. Either team, I think, stomps Horde or Toonstorm Federation. Just an unlucky draw for the blocks against Platinum Sensitivity, or Volta, whichever one is the team that
Yeah,
ends up here.
I want to give Horde a shot, but they kind of choke when they go into the real matches. Have you noticed? Like they do really, really good against the bad teams, and as soon as they go up against a team that's like equalish, because I'd say Platinum and Horde are, just from watching them, Platinum seemed they always seem messy. Does that make sense? Like every time they seem messy. They
Platinum
win, but they win messily.
Platinum wins messily, but the thing about Platinum Sensitivity, just in time for my hammer to have a seizure, is that they keep winning and getting like top 6 or top 8 like the last 3 years in a row. At some point, you got to be like, okay, it's messy, but if they keep winning, they keep winning. What can I say to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, and Horde also just chokes against like every time like they'll fly really good meta comps and play them really well, and then they'll go up against a good team, and then they'll just bring out some trash, and they're just like, what can we do? And it's like, oh, could have just brought what you brought last match, but hey, whatever. Um, yeah, Templus Calcif versus Snuffed Out. I see you picked Templus Calcif there. Huh, I don't know about that one there.
Really? I
They haven't played well.
I would agree with you, but I think their best is better than Snuff's best. Not necessarily by a ton, but enough where if you force me to give you odds, I feel like this is like maybe 70-30.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I feel like Snuff played really well, and Tempest Calcif's been. I think that Tempest Calcif's playstyle does not work as well in this current meta, whatever that meta it might be. But it doesn't like
I,
Tempest Calcif always seemed like a kind of Tusker light in the most recent years, right? Does that seem accurate?
I think it's accurate where I've looked at some of what Tempest has done, and I'm kind of like, you guys should know better, right?
Yes, exactly.
It's like
Yes.
that's what I'm thinking of. It's like you guys, they're the only team basically that's gotten themselves on like the Alliance Open. Like they're in the pantheon of wherever um, that tournament monument is. They're on it, and it's like, so what have you done since then? Like you guys should know better. You didn't entirely fluke this. What's up?
And the thing is, too, is the Alliance Open tournament was like the perfect tournament for Tempest Calcif because it was right after the surgical strike changes. There was some insane application deals going on. Like you could basically fly a heavy missile kiting setup against everything and win because you had Nighthawks like shitting out like 900 DPS from the entire arena side, which does not work anymore, by the way, in case you were trying to do it. Because of the way the tournament rules are set up, is that you could more or less have a shield rush that could kite the entire time. And Templars was the ones that realized that. So like obviously, yeah, everyone else sucks because they didn't realize it, but ever since that happened, Templars has not been able to repeat it. Snuffed seems to be playing pretty dang well. That's all I'm saying. But
Fair
yeah,
enough. Going back to the winner side of things, someone's got to win.
someone does
Fraternity and
have to win.
Volta. Um,
Fraternity.
okay.
Yeah.
So so I was going to ask, do you think Fraternity is because I'm really you think that there's a chance that sensitivity could beat Fraternity if it's them and not Volta?
I see what you're saying. No, I don't think Platinum Sensitivity can beat Fraternity because Fraternity is too good at playing. So, I guess like, well, got to go back in time a year. The thing that Fraternity was insanely good at, and if you go back and watch the matches, you'll see this, is that they would fly this armor setup like textbook perfect. Every single person would be exactly where they needed to be, no matter what ship it was, no matter how fast their ships were, the entire match. If they were up against a team where they needed to stay perfectly balled up and in like have their ships in a specific line with that specific ranges, they'd fly it. If it was a team where they needed to spread out and rush everybody, they would do it. And they flew the same setup and they were really good at doing it. Fraternity is like hot shit good at keeping themselves where they need to be, right?
Yeah, I would definitely
That
agree with that. They were positionally. I look at them and I go, "Oh, you're doing better than I would think you would."
they were better than almost any team out there positionally. Like Fraternity is the team that if you were gonna like I don't know go to Eve Uni and teach a class on what Alliance tournament comps should look like and how they should fly, you would just show them recordings of the Fraternity and be like, "Yep, look where he is. That's perfect. Look where he is. That's perfect." I think that would crush Platinum Sensitivity because that is so good against messy play. Now
Yes,
against Volta, I think it also beats Volta because Volta usually, generally, Volta seems to win by kind of out individually piloting or out like out team piloting people. And Fraternity is able to look at them and be like, okay, yeah, we see what you're doing and we know exactly where we need to be, so we're just going to be there.
yeah.
If that makes sense.
I
Yeah.
I,
So
I
I think
feel
I
like
think you're right there. I
I
think
feel
Volta
like
wins either way.
okay. Is it Volta wins the other way or Fraternity wins the other way?
Or sorry, Fraternity wins either way. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I'm with you on that. And then the next match, um, I mean THL versus paper numbers. Like, I love you guys,
THL.
Rifison,
Yep.
but like, it's not going to happen. This is THL.
Yep.
Um, Going on to Tuskers Co versus Only Fleets.
Tuskers.
Man,
Yeah.
I know this is going to be like the rant. You can just start your rant about how Tuskers gets like the freest bracket to like winter semis every year. And
I mean, they do. Like,
look at the 8 teams that we've got here.
well, here's the thing, though. You know why Tuskers gets the freest bracket is because they beat every single team that isn't a top 4 team. That doesn't make it free. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
When you
fair.
think about it, that doesn't make it free. That just makes them good.
Yeah,
It seems free
true.
because you look at it and you're like, oh, they got a free bracket. Oh, they got a free bracket. But it's like, yeah, but when they consistently get to the same spot every single year because they never get truth. Tuskers has gotten Truth Honor Lighted once where they were like, they outmeted themselves and then they still made it into the top 4 through the lower bracket. Tuskers is a really good team that flies really weird shit. But Tuskers wins. Like, you don't beat them. Unless Mirachiv just gets way too into his own brain, they're going to win this match. And guess what? If Mirachiv does get way into his own brain, then they're going to go into the lower bracket, and then they're going to win the match and still probably end up in the top 4.
Yeah, I think Tuskers is. I mean, they were in the grand finals last year. They got second place against Fraternity. I think they definitely entirely earned their position. They beat Barcode in the best out of 3 match to make it there, and I don't see any reason why they're not going to be one of those top 4 teams at the end of this year, like you just mentioned. Barcode or evasive maneuvering beats Odin's Call.
Yeah. The way they've been playing, yeah. I think both of them. I don't know. Odin's Call was not that impressive in the feeders. Like, they barely snuck through, but it wasn't like that year they barely snuck through because they got unlucky. They just barely snuck through. So if you're asking, do both of them beat them? Yeah, I do. I can't see your stream right now. It's all pixelated as fuck, but I'm trusting you, and I'm saying that. Oh, now I can. Wow, crazy. La, 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 la. Oh, you got to scroll down some.
Okay.
Or what are we looking at? There we go.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Tuskers. I think Barcode beats Odin's Call. I think Tuskers beats Barcode.
I think that's entirely fair. Some of these were the homie picks. I could see it going either way. Again, this is going to be really, when you get to those matches, it's less about like team name and more about how do they draft and what was their theory like and how do they adjust going from week 1 to like week 2 if there's like anything suddenly wrong. It's really more about like how did your preparation stack up against. There's not really going to be, for the most part, like any sort of.
Can you do me a huge favor and pause for a bit? I have a phone call I have to take. Okay, I'll be back in a bit.
Right, getting back at it for the next match, we're going to go back down to the lower bracket here, and this is the first match where we have losers bracket matches where it's all just whittling down, going from, I believe, the top 16 to the top 12, where on this side of things, yes, you're in the money, yes, you're getting chips, but are you getting more of them or are you getting less of them? So Arrival and evasive maneuvering has described it's going to be Barcode or it's going to be evasive maneuvering running through the lower bracket here.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's pretty no-brainer. Like, whichever team wins. And then B-Sod versus Rageface Cancel Sub. Like, B-Sod should win, in theory. Like I said, there's been some movement in that bracket, or movement in some of those teams, but I still think B-Sod wins that one pretty handily, assuming no shenanigans.
Mm-hmm. And Rote and Genshin.
That's kind of up there. I think both teams are about equal here. I think that is a actual 100% draft coin flip.
I am inclined to agree with you that I would literally flip a coin and do just as well as any analyst.
Yeah, like that's one of those ones. If you asked me like after the first day or the second day, I could probably give you a good answer after we see how the teams play in the actual tournament. But because I do think we're going to see that some teams that basically shield rush through the feeders were not ready for the real tournament when we get to it. But I think these are guys we're going to have to find out. That's a date. Would be day 3, I think, is usually when we do that. So that'd be a day.
These should all be day 3 matches here.
Yeah, so that'd be a day 3 question, like where you ask before ask that Friday, right?
Yeah, and then Platinum and Templess. I feel like Platinum is just consistently better than Templess.
You're just saying Platinum for the boys, and I'm going to say Platinum for the boys.
But
For
in
the
all
boys.
seriousness, I think that
For the
again,
boys.
Platinum consistently is a top 8 team, and
Yeah, no, I agree. But so's
they've gotten
Tempest. That's
there.
my
They've
point.
gotten there by beating teams like Temple.
Yeah.
Generally, I think
Yeah,
they're.
we'll see.
I will agree though that like both of these teams are better than Roten Genshin.
No, I agree, but the reason why I say sorry, I'm putting the phone on a charger real quick. The reason why I say that it could be Templess is because I think the rule set this year favors Templess' style of play more so than it has the last few years.
That's entirely fair.
Yep.
And we're actually going to stay in the lower bracket here because the teams that are feeding in, like Paper Numbers, Volta, Odin's, and Only Fleets, are coming, from the lower bracket to feed this. So, Paper Numbers and evasive maneuvering. Again, it's going to be one of evasive maneuvering or barcode here. Just better. Both
I,
of them are better than Paper Numbers.
yeah, I think either of those teams are going to make it all the way to top 6. Like it doesn't matter which one. I do think evasive is better, but whichever one is in there, I think they make it all the way to top 6. So
Yeah.
they push on through to the next match, and then Volta versus BSOD. That's so I know that BSOD beat Volta relatively recently, but I could be making stuff up because when you're on match, 798, you start to forget stuff. I want to give it to Volta though, but again, we're gonna have to see. We're gonna have to see how they actually play out, right? Because yeah, they crushed the feeders, but some of those teams in the feeders are just meh.
I was going to say, like, Platinum Sensitivity was actually the team that knocked out Volta in the losers bracket in this exact same position last year. So, kind of seeing a bit of a theme of like some of the same teams being in this space, and that's kind of why we've got, or at least I've got them in the bracket. Um, so we're getting a little coin flippy at this point.
Yeah.
And then going back up to the winner side, we were talking about again, really fraternity or THL. This would be a best out of one. Um, I really wish these were best out of threes, but it's hard to do that with the time that we've got. These are already like 8 to 10 hour days that we're doing on broadcast, and we're running out of time. So
I think that Fraternity can beat THL in a best of one on a coin flip. I don't think Fraternity can beat THL in a best of 3 or a best of 5. So if there was anywhere where you wanted to be spicy, this is the one that I think Fraternity could actually win. I understand, though, assuming Truth Honor Light wins this because it's the safer bet. I think when Twitch chat points are up, it's going to be Truth Honor Light favored. I think that statistically, Truth Honor Light favored. I actually think this is a 50-50 match.
um, yeah, I want to say that even last year, and it will definitely play this into this year, is like who is fraternity scrimming against? Like I know I've got a pretty good idea who against like who THL is scrimming, but I'm trying to figure out like who is fraternity scrimming to really get a deep understanding of this year's meta that's giving them like valid results, if that makes sense. What
That is
intel
information that, like, I don't know if it would fall under the NDA, but I believe it technically would because we're not supposed to talk about insider information if we have any. Um, Specifically because of stuff like that. Because like the reality of it is that like some of us are actually subbing in as refs, right? So some of us are seeing things that we're not supposed to know about, and that's why we signed paperwork that says we're not going to talk about it. So I'm telling honestly, I have no idea who Fraternity's scrimming against, but I bet you somebody does, and Fraternity wouldn't want you to know who it is, and therefore, if we had any guesses, we probably shouldn't guess.
and
I
I don't
personally,
even know. That's the
yeah,
thing where I'm at, where it's kind of like almost like a time zone thing. I know a lot of them are in the U.S. when they play, but I thought at least a couple of their tournament core are in mainland China, which I
they
know
are.
gets into difficulties. Like, okay, well, how do I scrim against like some of the better European or American teams while being, on Beijing time zone and actually getting useful information out of
Yeah, from what I understood last year, because we did a little interview with them, I believe that the fraternity team is a decent portion of them are United States based, but they mostly speak Chinese.
it? Yeah, most of them are U.S. or in Canada, and
Yeah,
They speak both languages, but internally they're speaking Chinese. This is a Chinese
yeah,
language team.
for the team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the only person that, if I was going to speculate, was maybe they're playing with Genshin Impact, but also I know that most of the fraternity people also speak English pretty damn well. So they could be scrimming with anybody in the US time zone for all we know. I mean, honestly, fraternity is a big enough alliance, maybe they're doing internals too.
Yeah.
Because I think last year they were doing mostly internals, from what I understand. The person you'd want to ask about that would be Misty, and he would be like, "Oh, I don't know anything about the team. Oh, my name's Misty. I don't know anything about the team." And
Yeah,
it's
I'm
like,
just
yeah,
like
okay,
I'm just in like
buddy.
leadership and like the leadership channels, but I don't know anything
Uh-huh.
about the AT team. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
crazy. But yeah, no, it was just because I was impressed with fraternity last year. I'm like, okay, how did you get this much better? Like, in the span of a year. Like you went from like a middling like top 16, like top 12, maybe top 18 to being like, oh, you just won the whole tournament.
Yep.
That happens because you got really good scrim and you got really good practice and you understood the meta. That usually doesn't happen in the space of a year, but hats off to them. I mean, they earned it last year. Let's see if they can, you know, do more than and got to win this best out of threes again. And if, like you were saying, THL, this is where if you fluke a best out of one and you drop it doing something silly, you can find yourself in a very dark place, and that's what happened to them last year. So don't play yourself. And I've got this as Tuskers or Barcode or Evasive. Any one of those three teams, I think.
Yeah.
I know I was saying earlier that I think that it would be Evasive Maneuvering or Barcode, but I don't want to discount Tuskers here. I really think that of the five teams that I think will win the Alliance tournament, it will be one of Barcode, Truth Honor Light, Fraternity, um, Huskers, Barcode. I said someone probably twice, but one of those five teams will win the tournament this year. Which, I mean, bold prediction. You've chosen
Yeah,
the teams that have all won or placed in top two, top three in the last
yeah.
few
My
years.
prediction is one of the teams that have placed in the top six multiple times over the last 3 years is going to win the Alliance tournament. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I I feel like Truth Honor Light is always a good choice for it. But yeah, well, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. That's the thing too. These top four teams from last year, we haven't got to see any of them play at all. They could be washed up. We don't know. We're gonna find out in what 4 days, 3 days, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
we will.
because all the
Um,
top four teams didn't have to go in the feeders, they've just been happily just like, oh yeah, cool. This is
yeah,
great. I'll scrim.
and that's one of the things that you get as a privilege of having gotten top four is that you just auto qualify into the main event. There were 28 spots that were essentially teams had to play for. There's no more buying into the tournament with like Plex or auctioning in. No, you have to earn your spot in. But these teams, I mean, now they've just been chilling, watching and taking notes and kind of rolling their eyes at two Battleship Core or a Shield Rush in feeders and um, not being super interested in that and then go next.
Nope.
Going next down to the lower bracket, we're in round five. So we're basically into the
Here in round five.
top, we're in
Yeah.
to the top six, top eight. And this is where I was going to let you make some picks here, BBP.
Okay, so I say Volta over Bright Side of Death.
I think that's pretty fair.
Yep. I say so we
Well,
get on
obviously
Odin's
say
Call.
Rogue.
No, I think that's right. Yeah, I think Odin's Call beats Rote. I definitely think Platinum Sensitivity beats Only Fleets. Yeah, that's kind of as is. So these next ones though, that
This
gets a
is
little
this
interesting.
is the top, and then any team that wins here, you're in top eight. So this is top eight. Loses round five.
Yeah. So losers round five. That's a coin flip. That is literally a coin flip because we don't know how good either of these teams are because they haven't had to play anybody that's difficult this time. I feel like evasive maneuvering beats Volta. And the reason I feel like that is because if the evasive maneuvering team is as per what we saw in the feeders, a lot of Vidra players, there's just something about them that is so insanely hard to beat. I've lost multiple games to them back when I was actually playing tournaments. I think they win. I think that they're the ones they can pull some jank shit out and just be like, yeah, get jammed, idiots. As for Odin's Call versus Platinum Sensitivity, uh, I don't want to be an anti-Mark Bridgeser, but I think Odin's Call has that. Like they've been so consistent. That's like Odin's Call. They've been consistent.
And the funny thing is the reason we've got, Volta here and platinum sensitivity here is because earlier we had platinum sensitivity and Volta here. I think it's
Yep.
entirely possible, not likely, but there's a universe in which they match each other like again in the lower bracket. That's what I'm saying. This is how stacked these brackets, those
Well,
two early
fun
matches are.
fact, every single AT has had some teams end up matching in the lower bracket after getting kicked out of the upper bracket in the last several years.
Well, I'm saying like a direct rematch of like their winners
Yeah,
side.
no,
Yeah.
I'm saying like a direct rematch. Yeah, source, I made it up, but I'm also pretty sure I'm right.
No,
Like
you're 100% right. It's happened where
yeah,
we've had some teams like in like winter semis, and it's like, oh well, welcome to like losers, finals. Like that's you guys again, but in the
yep,
best of 3 this time. So, um, yeah,
yeah.
man,
I
like
would I would give it to Odin's Call on this one though. I think that they have the consistency to beat Platinum Sensitivity because I think if people play really really well, Platinum Sensitivity has trouble with them.
okay,
That's why they're always so messy.
I'll say this one though. I don't think Fraternity loses to Odin's Call in a best of.
No, absolutely not.
So, but I go to this side. I go to evasive maneuvering. Both any team there can win in a best of 1. Huskers
I
evasive
don't think
maneuvering. Either team can
I
win
don't think
in a best of 1.
evasive. No. Yes. Wait, is this a best of one or is
These
losers round
losers
eight
runs,
best
these
of?
losers runs, these are all best out of. These are all BO1s.
Yeah.
I think it
Yeah.
favors evasive maneuvering, and I want to say it favors again. This is a coin flip for me.
Yep.
Tuskers in evasive maneuvering.
Yeah, I think evasive maneuvering. So let's for the sake of it, let's say evasive maneuvering wins because I think evasive maneuvering can beat Fraternity, and I don't think Tuskers can.
Well, I
Because
mean,
remember, Tuskers got
you say that
stomped by Fraternity last year.
they went to best of 5. They went to round 5,
Yeah, that's a stomp.
losing. Okay, three,
They
three,
lost.
three and
They
two.
lost to the same comp over and over again.
Okay.
Fraternity didn't fly anything. They just flew. They flew what Redeemer, Vindicator over and over again, and then they're like, "Oh, we
Well,
won. We can't fly it this match."
we ended
Okay, they
up.
brought it back and won.
We ended up getting like all of the bands, the conquest bands. Got ridiculous. Where
Right,
it
that's what I'm
seems like
saying.
we have
Like
nothing to fly anymore.
it was. So the thing with last year is that every single match was either a Fraternity like stomp or a Fraternity almost won this, even though they got completely outdrafted. But the conquest bands banned out their only comp. So I think Fraternity beats Tuskers because Fraternity had figured Tuskers out. Now they didn't figure them out in the same way that like Truth Honor Light figured out Volta a couple years ago, where they just were like, "Okay, we're just gonna 3-0 you, go away." Or
Yeah,
the other time in Truth Honor Light where they 3-1 them, and like that one was kind of a like, eh, you know what I mean? But
yeah. I
like,
tend to agree that when
yeah,
fraternity lost, it was a close loss, right? It was
yeah,
closely contested. But when fraternity like won, it was like, oh, you just got dunked, and you're gonna like, you just got absolutely styled on.
yeah.
I'm with you on that.
So, but
Tuskers
I
and
think that
evasive
evasive
maneuvering.
maneuvering though. So I think evasive maneuvering can beat Tuskers because evasive maneuvering has the brain power to look at what Tuskers has been flying for the last 3 days, theoretically, and be like, yeah, we know how to beat that. You got to remember, evasive maneuvering is the team that created Octodad. Like
This is still
literally, they
you got to
are the
keep in
ones
mind
who did it.
this is more a dark side team than it is really a Vidra team. Just looking at who's on the
Yeah,
team, this is a faffy waffy team at
yeah,
the end of the day. No,
that's fair.
it's not a any of the others that
Yeah,
really
I don't know.
made that. I could flip a coin. I'm going to go
Yeah,
evasive though.
yeah.
Um,
The only reason I say evasive is because I think evasive can beat Fraternity, and I don't think Tuskers can. Because that makes it more interesting because then you get an interesting match where you can have evasive maneuvering go into a best of 3, which is way better than having Tuskers go into a best of 3 because Tuskers has lost every best of that they've been in for years now, with the exception of that one last year. And then they still lost a best of 5. You know what I mean? Like I don't think Tuskers has it in them to be a number 1 team. I think evasive maneuvering could win the tournament. I think Fraternity could win the tournament. I think Barcode maybe could win the tournament, though I know you're just simping for them, and that's the only reason why they're there. I think Truth Honor Light could win the tournament. I don't think Tuskers can win the tournament. So I'm trying to kind of set this up so we get somebody who I
Yeah,
think could win, so I
I
can point to it in
I
2 weeks and be like,
I
haha,
agree with you.
happened.
I think that I might be a little too high on the barcode copium. Um, I have some reasons to be pretty high on them right now, but um, man, like some of this also comes to unique, interesting flagship picks, where some teams go with the Balgorn, some teams are going with Vargas, some teams are going with the Vindicator, and I don't know what your thoughts on flagships are, but that to me says a lot about what you think is going to be good this year.
I mean, it's Balgorn is the answer to your question. Like, there's really not like a, you know what I mean? Like, there's not really another answer. Like, if you look at the way the flagship rules are, there's a reason Balgorns were banned from flagships for literally years, and they're back. And look at the teams that picked Balgorn, right? Like, you have basically the top two theory crafting weird shit teams of all time, with probably some of the top two like weird off the wall theory crafters of all time, which is Mira Chief and Kadesh Priestess, picking Balgorn. That's really all you need to say about that, right? Like, there was clearly a correct answer here, and it was Balgorn. Did a lot of teams pick it? No, a lot of teams picked Armageddon Navy Issues. I think Armageddon Navy Issues is actually the most popular this time. And then there's a couple Bargists, which I don't get that. But hey, good luck, Volta. High fives all around there, right? And then there's a couple Vindicators and a couple Lashaks, but like, no, Balgorn is the pick of the year.
So
And what
then
teams picked it? Tuskers and Volta, or Tuskers and Truth Hunter Light.
I want to say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say evasive maneuvering, they chose the Vindicator.
Evasive Maneuvering picked a Lashak, dude, and that
Picked the
is a
Lashek.
big old question
Okay,
mark.
okay, you're right. I'm sorry, I got that mixed up. So Lashak is another ship that's been banned for a while from being a flagship. Um, I want to say it was them and BSOD were the only teams to pick the Lashak.
Yes, you're correct.
So this is also something that I think is also weirdly held Waffy Waffy back. Is they get into like this weird like RU meta that has never been on par in the best of three realm with like the EU or NA meta or just the theory crafting and comping. And I think it's held them. It's been a step below.
I mean, there's a reason why we don't think they make it in the top four, right? Or top six.
Evasive maneuvering?
No. Oh, Evasive Maneuvering? Yeah. Yeah, but it's not just him this time. But no, I don't think Lashak. Like, the flagship Lashak to me says that your plan is to get into an E-War with a Lashak comp by the end of the match. Like, let's be real. I should not be able to predict that. Like, I shouldn't be able to look at your flagship choice and be like, okay, your literal entire plan is to do old school Lashak Ewar combo, and that is your whole game plan, is that you think that you're so good at Ewar Lashak that you're going to use that as your linchpin flagship comp into the finals. That right there makes me think evasive maneuvering can't beat Fraternity in a best of one.
I agree with you. And that's also why I think Barcode's better than them this year.
Uh,
Because
yeah, because Barcode got a Balgorn. Okay, yeah, I didn't look at that. All right, yeah, never mind. Barcode's a winner. Good job. All right, so I think Fraternity beats evasive maneuvering. Because my prediction for losers round 7, if I can write this down, is that evasive maneuvering brings a Lashak Ewar comp and then loses to Fraternity, bringing some kind of weird ass armor rush.
I think that could be any of the matches against them or Barcode earlier on. Like I
Yep.
think that's a setup where I look at like the Ebor Lashak and I'm like, really? What's up? Like you either you know something we don't, or you've completely misread things. And you were also around during the Balgorn era where it was the flagship pick of everyone for a good reason, and you figured something out in a flag mirror, um, or you just completely have misread what's going on.
Yeah, no, I think that I think they misread it. Like, I legit think they misread it. I'm pretty sure, because the only reason why you ever bring a Lashak is because you bring a control setup with a Lashak, because Lashak does enough DPS by itself to count as all of your DPS ships, right? There's a reason nobody flies that anymore. And it being a flagship with, like, okay, yeah, you have officer mids, you have like officer repairs, you have officer SIBOs, which is the big one for a Lashak, right? You have officer cap booster, which can help a little bit depending on if you're running 800s, 3200s. Like, the only reason why you bring a flagship Lashak there is because you're worried about it getting jammed or neuted out. But like, what happens if they just bring 8 DPS medium rail ships and blast you into oblivion?
Well, more to the point, what happens if they bring like one curse?
Yeah, yeah.
And the thing about Valgorns is you can get remote sensor boosted.
I mean, you
You
can remote
can't.
sensor boost a Lashak as well, but like,
Well, the point with that is it's like, well, the Balgorn is good, and we're getting off into a different topic rather than like the brackets here. But the reason that Balgorn was good and has always been good is even if you try jamming it, even if you try damping it, you can always get remote sensor boosted, and you have like near 70-kilometer webs that can hit pretty much everything in the arena. And 70-kilometer webs are incredibly oppressive if you've got the top tier, um, officer webs, which any of these teams in the top 6, top 4, they have. Um, there's no reason they wouldn't be able to source them, really. With all the money they have, they're able to get them. The issue with the Lashak is, yeah, it does a million damage when it spools onto something, but you have to be able to spool and be able to hit things. And if you get tracking disrupted to 0 kilometers, good luck with that. You can't really get remote tracking computed the same way you can get remote sensor boosted.
yeah, I don't know. It's a choice. I think it's the horribly, horribly, horribly wrong choice. Like, as soon as you saw that it had, as soon as you saw that they let the Balgorn back in and are allowing officer stasis webifiers in again, and you didn't pick up Algorn, like, bro, I'm sorry, but like, I understand teams. I understand a lot of the teams that did like Armageddon Navy issues instead of a Balgorn because it's like maybe you can't afford a Gotans or not. Is it? It's not Gotans. Is it
I'm gonna get.
Hakeem's? I
I
don't
want
know.
to say I want to say it's teams. Whatever.
Yeah,
Point being
and
is
Ms.
that
Burroughs, yeah, like I get it. It's like a 50 to 70 billion stasis webifier, and not only is it not that they're that expensive, but there's really not that many of them. Like, go check the Jita market. I guarantee you, like 10 have been sold in the last year.
uh,
Like,
I'd say
at
40 to 70 is that would be great if you could get that like 4 or 5 years ago.
yeah,
We're
you would
talking
have.
we're talking if you lose 2 officer, um, like top tier officer like mods, though that's we're talking a quarter trillion between those two mods right there.
Well,
Easily.
yeah, and also nobody's going to sell them. As soon as those
Yeah.
tournament rules came out, you are not buying those from anybody. Like,
Mhm.
and also, the thing that's mind blowing too, like, it actually, like, why are you picking Get Navies? I know we're tangenting you super hard here, but there's people that are picking Get Navies when you can't use officer newts.
Yeah, that's kind of weird to me where it's like the thing that made the Armageddon for people who might not be, necessarily understanding why you would choose and get a Navy who aren't, tournament buffs like us. Um, what was the deal with the get a Navy issue? What is it good at?
So the Get Navy issue is like literally it's like the jack of all trades ship. Like, you can make it into a rapid heavy boat, you can make it into a laser boat, you can make it into a full newt boat, you can make it into a drone boat, you can make it into all sorts of different combinations, and it's pretty decent at everything. And one of the big things is that it had, bonus energy neutralizers, which is cool, especially when you attach like, Dead Space, or you can do Officer if you want, but you can do Corpus X types on it, and it's totally fine. Um, because X type newts are like stupidly long range and give a really huge suck, but you can't do that this tournament. You can only use Tech 2 neutralizers, as far as I'm aware. Like, I've read the rules like 7 or 8 times on it because I remember, for the flagship that I looked at, I was like, holy crap, they're letting webs back in and Balgorns, and that's kind of where my brain was like, huh. But like, I'm double checking right now, and I don't see anything about you being able to use the big suck newts, and that means that one of the biggest things with the Get Navy is just out of there, right? So
Yeah,
like, I don't know why you'd use it, because like last year, people used them all the time because guess what? You could use X-type newts on it, and you'd have super long range, really good newts. You could, so now you basically it's just a DPS boat at this point that has better neuting power, which is cool. But you know what the Balgorn is? It's a DPS boat with better neuting power that also webs to literally 60 plus kilometers. You can warp a Balgorn at 0, remote sensor boost that thing, and it can instantly web your Logi as soon as the match starts. And there is nothing you can do about it at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was throwing up a bit of a question mark, because what you described is entirely correct, where the reason people have been bringing an Armageddon Navy issue is it's a giant curse when it comes to the newts. It newts out everything. It's like, oh, well, you have no capacitor on your Logi. Have fun. You just get to inject. You get to cycle your mods on that tick, and now you're out of cap again, and it's gone.
Yeah. Now the one thing is you can't newt from that range with the Balgorns this time because you don't have the X types, which that's something. But like, I don't know, dude. It's insane. It's super Like, it's not what we were talking about at all. But like the reality of it is that like if you didn't pick a Balgorn, like the evasive maneuvering picked a Leshak. They are the only team to pick a Leshak. So you were correct in that Faffy Waffy is doing his normal meta shit, and he seems to think that Leshak is the choice here. The other 31 teams were like, nah, that's not right. So now that you say that, yeah, I don't know. I don't think evasive maneuvering beats Fraternity. Like, if
That's
we
why
can
I was
figure
high
this
on them
out
with
from having
barcode.
never
Yeah.
looked at it, yeah, like I have not even looked at this yet, right? I didn't look at the. I have. This is the first time I've looked at the flagships beyond seeing that. I saw the Balgorns, the Gen Navy issues. I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. You buy the Gen Navy issues if you're poor, and you do the Balgorn if you have enough money to afford a Hakim. It's cool. Makes perfect sense. All right, cool. Move on, right? I didn't see that Leshak, and now that I've seen, I'm like, what the hell is wrong with these people? So yeah, I don't think that they can beat any of these. Like, I know what they're trying to do too. They're literally trying to take a Leshak, put like 3 to 4 E-War cruisers, or maybe some E-War frigates, and then they're going to try and control everybody down with the Leshak ramps and kill something. Because that is the only thing you do with a Leshak. There's no other reason to fly anything else. That hasn't worked for years. People know how to beat that.
Well, the other reason you could be bringing it is thinking that I'm fighting against a Balgorn, and what breaks an officer Balgorn?
A Leshak until the officer Balgorn newts you out, and then your spool drops because it hits you with, what, 3,800 cap every
Yeah.
10 seconds, which you can't boost through.
No,
Yeah.
you really can't boost through it. It's like you either and the thing is, like, they must have tested this in script, right? Like you have to have, right? There's no way you wouldn't before you choose flagship, right? Like locking those in wasn't until midway through the season, so something's going on there. But also Volta, they chose a Barghest.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we know what Volta's going to try and do. Like, we literally know exactly what they're going to try and do.
Mhm.
They're going to try and create a shrapnel comp with a bunch of rapid light missiles and a Barghest, and then they're going to try and just alpha through everybody's Logi and their low ships and then win because they outpiloted them. It's what they've done every single year. They've done it really, really well, and they do it up to the top 6 every single year. Like, prove me wrong. Like, I'd love to be proven wrong.
No,
and maybe what they might do
what
is,
every team has done
yeah,
with their flag Balgorn, or sorry, flag Barghest for the last
yeah,
4 years, right?
yeah. Ooh, maybe they'll do it with armor ships instead. Ooh, but it's the same thing. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, the only team that's ever done the Barghest as anything other than what I just said was Truth Honor Light, who would do basically a massive ECM control and then use their Barghest as a huge burst damage ship, because Barghests do like 13 or 1400 perfectly applied DPS for 35 seconds, which means you could just jam people out and kill them, right? And they're the only ones who've ever done anything different with it besides Tuskers, who did the exact same thing. But notice, what did both those teams pick? Balgorns.
Yeah. Well, just so we can wrap this up, because people have been watching this for about 90 minutes now. I have Fraternity probably over Barcode, and I have THL Fraternity, and THL wins that final. Friend miles.
Yeah, I mean that's. I
Any
mean, I don't know,
disagreement?
dude. No, I'd agree with it. I think it's it's a little bit of a cop out because, like, let's be real, nobody would be surprised, right?
Right.
Um,
We got to choose
but no,
someone at the end of the day.
yeah, at the end of the day, somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, and that is how it is. But yeah, no, you got me super heated with that flagship shenanigans right
Yeah.
there. I was like, dude,
Just kind of
I've even
went primal again on that. So I'm going to zoom
oh yeah,
back in on this, so that viewers can see the final, if my stream will be nice and actually work, and
kind of hard to
screenshot
read,
that,
but
and yeah,
zoom
and
in.
see who
Yeah.
I've went with. So,
Yep.
any thoughts before we get ready and finish packing to go on our plane ride to actually do more spaceship things?
Yeah, dude, more like start packing. No, that's it. I'm kind of like I'm excited to see this. I think this is going to be a really really good tournament. The only thing that I'm a little sad about is that, like usual, like every modern Eve player, everyone is a giant fucking coward and refuse to bring an AT ship to the tournament. But hey, what can I expect of a group of people that refuse to undock their supers and titans anymore? Putting y'all on blast. It is what it is. I understand it. But hey, at the very least, we're seeing the Balgorns come back. We know those things end up being like 200 to 300 bill for some of these teams. Um, this is going to be really good. Like it's really cool when you go through the matches and there's only like in the beginning, it's like, yeah, we got like maybe 2 matches where we're kind of like, something could happen. It doesn't really matter. And then we have a couple more that are kind of like, well, this could be pretty cool, right? Like there's been tournaments before where I swear to God, like 10 of the matches are just like, okay, well, we already know who won, go next. And this one, there's 2. And it's not that we already know who win these ones, it's that we don't know who wins, but also does it matter?
Yeah, it's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you're like a top like 24 team, and then you're playing a top like 8 team. Like, we know who's going to win here. These are not the same thing, you know.
Yep.
All right. Well,
Also, no, that's actually all I have. I'll send
yeah.
this to you in DMs. I'll slide in your DMs about
Oh,
this one.
okay. You can
Oh,
slide into
whoa.
the Only Dance
Oh,
t-shirt.
whoa.
Okay.
Oh,
Cool.
yeah, dude.
All right. Well, appreciate you watching and putting up with BBP and I, just BS for the last 90 minutes. End it here and watch as people clip the both of us talking crap about their teams and being incredibly wrong. So, looking forward to it.